currently in northwest Jerusalem, and we want to head out today to the ancient landmark of Beit-El, or Beit-El in Hebrew, and maybe try and understand some of the significance of the site, and maybe even perhaps try and unlock some of the mysteries this biblical site has to offer. Alright, so we're heading down Route 60, going north towards Beit-El. Route 60 traverses through the central hill country of Israel. It's more or less the same exact route that would have been taken by Abraham or by Jacob close to 4,000 years ago. That's why it's also sometimes called the way of the patriarchs, or Derech HaAvot in Hebrew.
We're surrounded by the Beit-El mountain range. Now this area is the northernmost part of the Judean hills, which also includes the hills of Jerusalem and Hebron to our south. During biblical times, this region and all the area to its south, all the way to Jerusalem in fact, belonged to the tribe of Benjamin. To our north is the land of Ephraim, and about 15 miles from here is the biblical site of ancient Shiloh, the place the tabernacle stood for 369 years. To our southeast, we can see the Arab village of Beitin, which preserves the name Beit-El and is believed to be the location of the original biblical city. The ancient city was first identified in 1838 by the American biblical scholar and geographer Edward Robinson, and the discovery was later validated by the renowned biblical archaeologist William Foxwell Albright, who conducted excavations there in 1927 and 1934 on behalf of the American Schools of Oriental Research. The site was further excavated in 1954, 1957, and 1960 by James Leon Kelso, who continued Albright's work and published the final excavation report in 1968. The excavations revealed the city's rich history, beginning in the Bronze Age when Beit-El was a Canaanite city, and through its capture and resettlement by the Israelites during the Iron Age.
Nothing like an ancient piece of pottery to tell time. Some people use a watch, we use pottery, but this looks like it's from the time of the Israelites, maybe 11th century BCE. And just here I see another piece, look at that. That's a handle, a jug handle, and this looks like it's from the Second Temple period, roughly 2,000 years old. So I guess this site is ancient. The name Beit-El, which in Hebrew literally means the house of God, testifies to the long-lasting sanctity of the site, which is second only to Jerusalem in number of mentions in the Tanakh, in the Hebrew Bible. Now I would like to try and understand, together with you, the significance of this biblical site. The first mention we have of Beit-El is in the book of Genesis, where we read that after Abraham arrives in the land of Canaan, his very second stop after first arriving in Shechem is not far from here, just east of Beit-El, where Abraham builds an altar and calls upon the name of the Lord. In the book of Genesis, chapter 12, we read, "Then he proceeded from there to the mountain on the east of Beit-El, and pitched his tent with Beit-El on the west and Ai on the east. And there he built an altar to the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord." From Beit-El, Abraham continues onward with his journey through the land of Canaan. And then after several years in which Abraham was in Egypt and the Negev, and after acquiring great wealth, Abraham returns once more to the very same place near Beit-El. In Genesis chapter 13 we read, "Now Abraham was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold, and he journeyed on from the Negev as far as Beit-El, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Beit-El and Ai, to the place where he had made an altar at first. And there Abraham called on the name of the Lord." So what is the significance of Beit-El? Why was it so important for Abraham to come back here? Why was it here that Abraham first called upon the name of the Lord? Why was it in this area that he began his ultimate mission of teaching the world about the one true God? To answer this question, we continue our story with Abraham's grandson. By his mother Rivka's request, Jacob departs from Beersheba towards Haran in order to escape the wrath of his brother Esav. In the book of Genesis chapter 28, we read, "Then Jacob departed from Beersheba and went towards Haran. He came to a certain place and spent the night there because the sun had set. He took one of the stones of the place and put it under his head and lay down in that place. He had a dream, and behold, a ladder was set on the earth with its top reaching to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your descendants. So Jacob rose early in the morning and took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on its top. He called the name of that place Beit-El. However, previously, the name of the city had been Luz. By the way, just as a side note, some believe that this is the actual location of Jacob's dream, but perhaps that's a topic for another video. So as we see, beginning with the verses describing Jacob's dream, we learn that Beit-El has an additional name, the city's original name, Luz. Now the fact that the verse specifies the city's original Canaanite name is quite surprising. After all, Jacob was destined to continue in his grandfather's mission, which lay in direct contrast to the Canaanite idolatrous worldview. So why does the Bible insist on preserving this ancient name? The question seems even more significant when we notice this name, Luz, being used again in several other occasions. For instance, when Jacob returns to Canaan with his family, we read in Genesis 35, Jacob came to Luz, that is Beit-El, which is in the land of Canaan. He and all the people who were with him. He built an altar there and called the place El Beit-El, because there God had revealed himself to him. Later, when Jacob is on his deathbed in Egypt, speaking to his son Joseph, we read in Genesis 48, God Almighty appeared to me at Luz, in the land of Canaan, and blessed me. So why does Jacob insist on calling Beit-El Luz? After all, he was the one who changed his name to Beit-El in the first place. Let us continue with some more verses. In the book of Joshua, we read a description regarding the territory inherited by the tribe of Benjamin, in Joshua chapter 18. From there, the border continued to the side of Luz, that is Beth-El. In the book of Judges, we read of how Beit-El was conquered by the house of Joseph. Likewise, the house of Joseph went up against Beth-El, and the Lord was with them. The house of Joseph spied out Beit-El. Now the name of the city was formerly Luz. The spies saw a man coming out of the city, and they said to him, please, show us the entrance to the city, and we will treat you kindly. So he showed them the entrance to the city, and they struck the city with the edge of the sword, but they let the man and all his family go free. The man went into the land of the Hittites and built a city and named it Luz, which is its name to this day. So even though the name of the city was changed hundreds of years prior by Jacob, the verse insists on telling us that the name of the city was formerly Luz. Furthermore, we learn that the collaborator who helped the tribe of Joseph enter the city builds a new city in the land of the Hittites and insists on calling it Luz. Can these verses be hinting at something? Is it possible that the word Luz holds the key to unlocking the mystery of Beit-El? Perhaps at this point we should try and understand the meaning of the word Luz. Another mention of the word Luz, found only in the original Hebrew, is found in Genesis 30, in the very same Torah portion, Parashat Vayetze, where we find the first mention of the word Luz. After an agreement made between Jacob and Laban, in which Jacob is allowed to keep all the striped and spotted male goats, the speckled and spotted female goats, and the brown sheep, we read in Genesis 30, 37 through 39, Jacob took fresh rods of poplar and almond, Luz in the original Hebrew, and plane trees, and peeled white stripes in them, exposing the white which was in the rods. He set the rods which he had peeled in front of the flocks, in the gutters, even the watering troughs, where the flocks came to drink. And they mated when they came to drink, so the flocks mated by the rods, and the flocks brought forth striped, speckled, and spotted. In these verses, describing a seemingly miraculous breeding method used by Jacob, we learn that the meaning of Luz is in fact almond. Interestingly, this is not the only time an almond seems to denote a miraculous occurrence. In Numbers 17:8, we read of Aaron's blossoming rod. On the next day, Moses went into the tent of the testimony, and behold, the rod of Aaron for the house of Levi had sprouted and put forth buds and produced blossoms, and it bore ripe almonds. Similarly, in other occasions as well, the word luz appears to indicate a miraculous or otherworldly circumstance. This is evident beginning with the very first mention of the word Luz in the context of Jacob's divine dream. Even the actual city of Luz itself was considered to have been a mysterious, out of the ordinary, and perhaps even miraculous place. We got a glimpse of this when we previously read about the house of Joseph. When attempting to conquer Luz, couldn't even find the entrance to the city. And if not for a collaborator from within, they wouldn't have been able to enter it. The sages of Israel taught that the city of Luz was indeed a miraculous and mysterious place. The Talmud explains that even the new city of Luz, built in the land of the Hittites, as a substitute to the original city that was conquered by the Israelites, had supernatural qualities to it. The Talmud in Sota 46b explains, "It is taught, this is the city Luz where sky blue wool is dyed. It is the same city Luz where, although Sennacherib came and exiled many nations from place to place, he could not disarrange and exile its inhabitants. Nebuchadnezzar, who conquered many lands, could not destroy it. And even the angel of death has no permission to pass through it. Rather, when its elders have decided they have reached the end of life, they go outside the city and die." So not only does Luz represent supernatural qualities, it denotes an everlasting and indestructible life force, impenetrable even by the angel of death himself. Interestingly, the Jewish tradition teaches us of a small bone in the human spinal column called the Luz bone. This almond-shaped bone is believed to be virtually indestructible, and hence it is from this bone that the entire body will be restored during the future resurrection. This eternal spiritual force, represented by the luz, or almond, also appears as the primary decorative motif of the seven-branch menorah. 3 cups shall be shaped like almond blossoms on the one branch, a bulb and a flower, and 3 cups shall be shaped like almond blossoms on the other branch, a bulb and a flower. So for the 6 branches going out from the menorah. So like the menorah and its eternal flame, luz seems to embody a higher spiritual reality, an indestructible spiritual essence, a place able to bridge the gap between the sacred and the profane, matter and energy, this world and the next, heaven and earth. Upon awakening from his sleep, Jacob realizes the significance of the location he is at. In Genesis 28:16 we read, "Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, 'Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it.' He was afraid and said, 'How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven.'" But we have to ask, why this particular place? And even more so, why does Jacob call this place Beit-El, the house of God? After all, we all know that the temple in Jerusalem was destined to be called the house of God. The answers to these questions lay in the geography of Beit-El. If we look at a map, we can see that Beit-El is situated more or less in the very heartland of the land of Israel. But more importantly, Beit-El is located right on the boundary line between the portion, the allotment, given to the tribe of Ephraim, or Joseph, and that given to Benjamin. And it was indeed in these tribes' portions, the 2 tribes born to Jacob's beloved wife Rachel, that the house of God, the sanctuaries, stood. Namely, the tabernacle in Shiloh, which stood in the portion of Ephraim, and the temple in Jerusalem, located in the portion of Benjamin. This geographic convergence is alluded to by the verse describing the reunion between Joseph and Benjamin in Egypt. When the 2 brothers are finally reunited, we read, "Then he fell on his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept on his neck." Our sages, commenting on this verse, explain, "And he fell on his brother Benjamin's neck, for the 2 sanctuaries which were destined to be in Benjamin's territory and would ultimately be destroyed, and Benjamin wept on his neck, were the tabernacle of Shiloh, which was destined to be in Joseph's territory, yet would ultimately be destroyed." Another well-known verse which utilizes the symbology of the neck and is often interpreted as alluding to the sanctuary is found in the Song of Songs. "Your neck is like the Tower of David, built with rows of stones on which are hung 1,000 shields, all the round shields of the mighty men." The reason the sanctuary is likened to a neck is because as the neck connects the head to the rest of the body, so too does the sanctuary, like Jacob's ladder, connect heaven and earth. In a way, the allotment given to the tribe of Benjamin, who dwells between his shoulders, Deuteronomy 33:12, also acts as a neck, being situated between the tribes of Joseph, or Israel, and Judah. In this regard, it is interesting to remember the important role Benjamin played in reuniting Joseph and his brothers in Egypt. Joseph and Judah represent 2 distinct spiritual forces that, when joined together, make up the complete body of Israel. And what one nation on earth is like your people Israel? Remarkably, the luz bone is believed to be situated at the top of the neck. This indestructible bone guarantees the eternal existence of the people of Israel on their land. Indeed, let us not forget that it was here that Jacob was named Israel, and it was here that Israel was promised to inherit the land. course, it's not surprising to find an almond tree in Luz, in Beit-El. Care for an almond?